All right, here's your review. Number 2, guys, y'all you're gonna have to participate or be quiet, because if we're gonna make videos of this, there ain't gonna be no reason for it to be a video if nobody can hear what's going on. Old Kieran plans to bike 10 miles. We want an equation that gives his time in hours as a function of his rate. When they see that, when it says write an equation that gives his time t in hours, that means you're going to get t on one side by itself, and as a function of his rate r, it means it's going to have on the other side of the equation an expression with r as a variable, no other variables. So you go and you remember, we got this equation that says d equals r times t. What's the d stand for? What's the d stand for? Distance. What's the r stand for? What's the t stand for? What's the t stand for? Time. So how can we get the t by itself on one side? How do you get that though? You're right. You're good. You're on the right track. How do you get that from what we have here? Well, how do you get that? How do you get t by itself? Divide both sides by r. If you divide both sides of that by r, you get t equals d divided by r. And that's t as a function of d and r. But we know what d is. It's 10. So in this case, to answer part A, your t is equal to 10 over r. That's part A. That's all it is. Now, what's the next part asking you for? What's the next part asking you for? What does it mean when it says t of 8? Like that. Well, your t is your time. That's this. When you see this, this is red, t of 8. That's what it means. It means, what is t when r equals 8? And so you're going to plug in. T of 8 is equal to 10 divided by 8. Which if you did that in your calculator, you would get 2.25. No, 1.25, sorry. 1.25 what? That's hours, because we did hours per, or miles per hour, right? We're going 10 miles, so that would be in hours, 1.25 hours. Does that make sense? It makes sense, because if you rode 8 miles an hour, you'd go in 1.25 hours, you'd go 10 miles. So yes, it makes sense. That's part B. What is t of 0? That's the rate, or sorry, the time it would take to go 10 miles if you were going 0 miles per hour. Does that make sense? Doesn't make sense at all, does it?
So to answer these, will we just put yes and no? Like we don't have to write out the equation or anything?
That's what I see there. It says, does it make sense?
Okay, so we don't have to answer what is the meaning of t of 8?
No, you got to answer that, and that's what this is right here.
Where are we supposed to answer that at?
Well, it means that it would take 1.25 hours to go 10 miles at 8 miles per hour. Honestly, when I read that, I first thought it said, what is t of 8? But the meaning of it, I'll write that for you in just a minute, okay? But it would take 0, or to go 10 miles at 0 miles per hour. If you're going 0 miles per hour, how far are you going to go?
You're not going to
You're not gonna go at all. So does it make sense that there would be a time it would take to go 10 miles at 0 miles per hour? Does not make sense, right? Over here, it would take 1.25 hours to go 10 miles. At 8 miles per hour. Keys right there and being able to manipulate that equation mathematically. That's what algebra is all about, manipulating equations. Putting them in a way to make sense. And you can do it. You said you wanted to go do, which one do you want to do? 3 or 4. You can graph this, if you graph this expression on your calculator, 2 minus 3x in parentheses divided by x. If you're going to graph that in your calculator, in your y1, you put 2 minus 3x divided by x. If you put that in your calculator, in your y1, then you'll get the graph of this. What happens, you'll see one of these or the other. When you graph this, you'll see this one. And the reason is, as x gets really, really, really big, the y value goes to that right there. What's negative 3x over x? What's negative 3x over x? Just negative 3, right? That's what the y value is going to get closer and closer to as x gets really, really big in the negative or positive direction. The horizontal asymptote is going to come from that part of the function, that part of the function. So when you look at this next one, when you graph it, there is no x on top, is there? Is there? So when you graph this one, you're going to graph y1 equals 10 divided by, now we got to put the denominator in parentheses. Otherwise, the calculator is not going to read it right. If you got more than one thing there, you need to put the numerator or denominator in parentheses. If all you got's a number or an x or something like that, you don't have to put it up there. But if you got 10x up top, you got to put it in parentheses. Okay. When you graph that, which one of those do you see? That's because this vertical asymptote happens when the denominator is 0. The denominator is 0 if you plug in 3 for x.
So what was the explanation for the first one that we did, number 3? I missed the end of it. Like how we explained how it happened.
When x gets really, really large, the y gets closer and closer to negative 3. When x gets large, either positive or negative direction, when it gets large, the y values get closer and closer to negative 3.
Do you have another review? Ryan has mine.
What's Ryan got yours for?
Because he was looking at one of my answers that he got wrong, and I got it right.
Well, that's good. Let me stop this, put this file in there.